So, good evening, and thank you very much for having me. And as David said, I'm going to make a presentation tonight about why it's crucial that all victims of war, both civilian and combatant, should be recorded as individuals. So, firstly, a word about the Oxford Research Group, in case some of you don't know who we are. We're an independent think tank based in London, which was established in 1982, around that time, mainly working on anti-nuclear issues. Right now we work to promote a more sustainable approach to security for the UK and the world through research, dialogue projects and policy recommendations. We have 3 areas of work at the moment: our Sustainable Security Programme, our Middle East dialogue projects, and the Recording Casualties of Armed Conflict Programme, which I work on. This is established in 2007 and aims to build the technical and institutional capacity, as well as the political will, to record the details of every single victim of violent conflict worldwide. And I've been working with OIG on this since 2009. We currently have 3 projects, which are a global practitioner network of organisations who already do this work, a research project into their methods, and a legal research project into what are the obligations in international law to record these casualties. We have a team of world experts on this missile research field, including a legal expert and an expert on recording and estimation methods. And our funders at the moment are the United States Institute of Peace, which is a fund of Congress, Federal Division of Foreign Affairs of the Swiss government, Civic, which is part of the German Foreign Ministry, and Funding Network, which is a UK network of philanthropists. So, some of the reasons why casualties should be recorded can be seen in the current intervention in Libya. So, as I imagine you all know, on the 17th of March 2011, under Chapter 7 of the United Nations Charter, the UN Security Council Resolution 1973 authorised intervention in Libya, short of occupation, all necessary measures to protect civilians. So the purpose expressly was civilian protection. It also emphasised, of course, the need to cease hostilities immediately, the need for accountability for those who were deliberately targeting civilians, and the need to enable the free passage of humanitarian assistance. So shortly after, 15 humanitarian and human rights organisations led by OIG called on all parties to the conflict in Libya, along with exercising every possible restraint in their conduct in military operations, should commit to recording and reporting on the civilian casualties of conflict from military operations in that country, by all means currently available, and to be followed up by a full on-the-ground investigation as soon as feasible. These organisations making this call were human rights organisations such as Human Rights Watch, the Campaign for Innocent Victims of Conflict based in America, and the practitioners of our network, people who do record casualties right now, from Afghanistan to Somalia to Guatemala. We made this call not only because of the inherent importance of recording the casualties of conflict, some of the reasons I'll go into shortly, but because we believe it is necessary on 1973's own terms. So, to take a step back briefly, what do I mean by casualty recording? What I mean is that the name or the fact of death of every person who has died in war should be documented, and that their identity should be known where possible as an individual. Sometimes, of course, this isn't possible in current conflict situations. It might be dangerous to identify people by name. It could endanger witnesses, but this is the ideal. So it's different to death toll estimates, which are produced statistically. For example, household sample surveys, which are then extrapolated to estimate what is the total number of deaths in a war. With recording, every single number is backed up by the solid knowledge of the death of an individual person. It's their name, their details, their photograph possibly. So up on the screen now, there's 3 examples of how casualty recording has been done and is being done around the world. There are 3 very different approaches in methods, how these are presented, how they're funded, what sort of resources the organisations have, and what sources they use. So just to demonstrate what the field is like a bit. On the far left there, you have the Srebrenica Potocari Memorial for the cemetery for the victims of the 1995 genocide in Srebrenica. This was a project which was mandated by the Office of the High Representative in Bosnia, and the memorial, which you can see there, was opened by Bill Clinton in 2003. It used forensic methods for identification of the victims by the International Commission for Missing People. And there's a physical memorial, as you can see, lists of names and a graveyard. Almost 7,000 people have been buried there so far, and it's had almost $6 million of funding. On the right there, you have an example of the database of victims of the Humanitarian Law Centre in Belgrade. This is a list of victims from Kosovo. This is a non-governmental human rights organisation who currently publishes a list of names on their website. After 6 years of research, using all kinds of sources, from witness statements through publicly available documents to court records, to record people in a database which will eventually be published in full online. And they're soon to publish a memory book of victims in Kosovo. The middle image there is from a website called Egypt Remembers, which is a citizens' initiative using the 1000 Memories website platform. Volunteers have created a spreadsheet on Google Documents and invited the submission of information on people that have died in the Egypt Revolution. They've used sources such as information from Human Rights Watch, news reports, even Twitter feeds, and there's 212 people with their photographs and their names on this website recorded so far. So the information level which we're talking about is at the level of the individual or the incident in which they died. And in order to do this kind of work, and for it to have its full power and to stand up to proper scrutiny, what is needed above all is detailed information which can be verified as correct or be shown to be false. And for this to happen as well, we need reported, fully transparent methods. The sort of details that are needed are on the screen now: names, dates and times, places, causes of death, and the people who were involved. So this is basically what we're calling on the parties of the conflict in Libya right now to do. Of course, recording is something that the Global North already does for our combatants. The First Geneva Convention requires parties to a conflict to search for, identify and make appropriate notifications of combatants who have died in war. And of course, we know exactly who has died of, say, British soldiers in Afghanistan. We see their faces on the news, we see their repatriation on the news, and of course we make memorials for the combatants who have died in war. So why do we need this kind of information in Libya right now? So on United Nations Security Council Resolution 1973's own terms, firstly, accountability for possible crimes of war. As 1973 reminds us, and we've seen in the news just last week, of course the situation in Libya has been referred to the International Criminal Court, and the prosecutor is now seeking warrants for the arrest of suspects for crimes against humanity, attacking unarmed civilians. A quote from the report of the prosecutor: security forces are allegedly attacking unarmed civilians, constituting crimes against humanity. So of course, for international criminal prosecutions to happen, like any criminal prosecutions, a high standard of proof is needed, and casualty records showing exactly who has been killed can be used to show deliberate targeting of civilians or not taking sufficient measures to avoid the loss of life by civilians. And indeed, these kind of records have already been used in international prosecutions at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. They have a war demographics unit there who produces basically casualty record information. And this has been used in prosecutions such as of Kristic for genocide and other crimes at Srebrenica. And it's been very useful for that. So the second reason why this is needed in Libya on UNSC 1973's own terms is that the harm that we cause by our own intervention should be recorded. We should be accountable for any harm that we cause in the name of civilian protection. And it seems to me that without recording, these aspirations to civilian protection don't seem to be credible. If we're intervening to protect, we must demonstrate that we are ourselves avoiding civilian harm. Casualty recording is obviously a part of showing that this is happening. It's also a means by which we, the public and policymakers, can decide if intervention such as this is the right thing to do now or any time in the future. And I think this kind of thing naturally follows from democratic transparency. The third reason, which is mentioned in 1973, is that the lack of information which casualty recording can bring impedes an effective humanitarian response and humanitarian response planning. So to give you a concrete example of where casualty records could be used for a humanitarian response, the OCHA asked Iraq Body Count, who are a casualty recording organisation that base their records on the monitoring of the international media to record civilian deaths in Iraq, if they could use their data to work out where is it dangerous to send humanitarian workers in Iraq. So this info is needed by humanitarian organisations for their own planning, for their own staff, but also, of course, to know where the need is, where are people being killed and injured, what kind of assistance do they need to send.